Thank you guys for joining us for this next session, ROE, Return on Emotion by Ian Ramirez. My name is Dennis Castillo. I'm with Takas Fiber Internet, your hometown fiber internet company. Named as Houston's Business Journal's 40 Under 40, Ian Ramirez is an internationally trained opera singer who has sung across the globe. From opera to operations, he serves as the co-owner and venue director of Madeira Estates, an award-winning Spanish and European-inspired luxury wedding and event venue located in Conroe, Texas. The architecturally stunning and beauty that is Madeira Estates takes inspirations and visions from a historic town of San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, an artist's haven and UNESCO World Heritage Site. Please join me in welcoming Ian Ramirez to the stage.
Thank you so much for the introduction. How's everybody enjoying the Woodlands Area Chamber of Commerce Business Summit this morning? Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Who's excited for a few more sessions of growth, education, and aha moments? Yeah. Well, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Ian Ramirez. I am the co-owner and venue director of Madeira Estates, located just north of here in Conroe, Texas. When I joined the family business 5 years ago, I quickly realized just how emotional the wedding planning experience can be. Who here has had some emotional experiences with either their own wedding or a child's wedding? Yes. So whether it's finding the perfect venue or the perfect vendor, or maybe a bride trying on dress after dress and still not finding the perfect one, or fast forwarding to wedding day, seemingly small, unfortunate details that happen, like inclement weather in the forecast, such as our weather today, a vendor running 15 to 20 minutes late, or even worse, the wrong shade of pink napkin showing up on your guest's table. So it got me to thinking about emotions and how they relate not only to our day-to-day lives, but how they relate to our sales experiences. And one of my favorite authors, Dale Carnegie, puts it so eloquently. Remember, when dealing with people, you're not dealing with people of logic. You're dealing with creatures of emotion. And in today's presentation, we are going all in on emotion, specifically how it relates to our sales processes and how we deal with them internally. Not only can the buying experience be a financial investment, it can be an emotional one as well. So we'll discuss ways that you can manage your own disruptive emotions. We'll identify 10 quick-fire ways that you can become more likable. We'll review the 3 stages of the sales appointment process and how to personalize them. And then we'll wrap up with building trust and laying the foundation for an easy yes. So as we begin our journey into the power of emotion and emotional connections, I think it really behooves us to take stock and inventory in our own emotions and the vital role that they play in the sales process. And really what we're talking about is emotional intelligence, which is your ability to recognize your own emotions, to correctly identify those emotions, and know why you're feeling them. Now, our foundation for sales EQ, emotional intelligence, is empathy. We know that we must be empathetic in sales. However, there is something as being overly empathetic. That in of itself can be its own disruptive emotion. Ultimately, we need to be able to simultaneously stand in our prospect's shoes while also keeping our ultimate sales objective in mind. And this is something that we call the dual process. Now, in addition to empathy, we need to be able to manage our own disruptive emotions. These destructive behaviors are something that completely derail us, cause focus, loss of focus, and sometimes even keep us from making decisions or leading to our next steps. We can either let these emotions run us, or we can choose how we respond to these emotions. And as Dorothy M. Niedermeyer says, life is 10% what you experience and 90% how you respond to it. Pretty powerful. So we need to choose to rise above emotion. So what are disruptive emotions? Has anybody here ever experienced fear during the sales process? I should see all of these hands up in the air because I'm sure at some point when you first started sales, you were afraid of rejection. You were afraid that the answer was going to be no when you asked for the sale. Another emotion is insecurity, having that lack of confidence. Desperation. Maybe you've had a really lackluster sales month and you're trying to close at least a few more sales. That leads us to being unconfident, needy, and unattractive. Next, we have attachment. How many of us have ever been attached to a sale that at the end of the day we knew wasn't going to go anywhere? Right? We have all been there. Next is worry. This is one that I personally struggled a lot with when I first joined my family's business 5 years ago. I was very concerned with how I would be perceived, how our services would be perceived, and how they might react to me personally. Impatience. Has anybody ever here been impatient in the sales process? Oh, can I have one more, change here on this proposal? Oh, I'm still not sure. I need to talk to this other person. When we react with our impatience, it pushes the client and prospect when they're not ready. And lastly, we have arrogance, one that also pushes our prospects away. When we show arrogance, it not only comes across as snooty, but we also come across as elitist and talking about ourselves. We end up talking too much about how great we are and how great our services are. So what we need to do is we need to rise above emotion, and we need to develop self-control and an emotional self-awareness. Now here are 9 ways and 9 steps that you can take to have that emotional self-awareness. The first is know your emotional triggers. This could be something as simple as knowing that you get a little tense when you ask for the sale, or getting a little tense when you deal with difficult people. Let's face it, we've all had those difficult prospecting calls. When we learn to anticipate, we become a little more comfortable and we can anticipate the anxiety that we will feel with that emotion. The next is preparation and practice. You may have heard during my introduction that I am an internationally trained opera singer. I sang professionally in Stuttgart, Germany, where they make Mercedes and Porsche, some of my favorite cars. The only times that I was ever nervous in my international career was when I hadn't practiced enough. I didn't know my words. I wasn't confident with my staging. What we need to do is we need to research our clients. We need to anticipate the questions and the objections that they may present to us during that sales process. Because when we are confident and we are prepared, that not only allows us to calm our minds, but it also gives us a little bit more flexibility when we do receive those curveballs. Pre-meeting planning. Every sales appointment should have a goal and objective in mind. Don't wing it. Positive visualization. The power of positive visualization, visualizing success, is vital and crucial to managing your own emotions. We need to, instead of focusing on what will happen if we fail, we need to focus on what will happen when we succeed. We also need to manage our self-talk. What we say in our internal dialogue becomes truth. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so what we all need to do is we need to adopt a leave-it-at-the-door mentality. Next is change your physiology. One of my high school voice teachers used to say, when you're nervous, do the big as the bear routine, right? So something as simple as rolling back your shoulders, smiling, letting those endorphins out, immediately can help dissuade any of those potential disruptive emotions that you may have. Next, obstacle immunity. The more that we can become comfortable with the uncomfortable, the more you can control your disruptive emotions. Push pause. Sometimes our sales appointments, there's rapid fire questions and objections. There's a whole lot of moving parts, and it's really tempting to act on these disruptive emotions, to act on that impatience. But in reality, we need to take that second to take pause and think before we speak. Ask an open question. A great question could be, could you tell me more about that? While they're talking and speaking, you have the ability to think, get your emotions under control, and choose how you respond. Again, we're rising above emotions. And lastly, we need to focus on what we really want. Has anyone here ever received an objection where a client has said, "Your prices are overpriced"? Anybody? I heard, "Oh my God," every day over here. Yes, right? So oftentimes, our initial gut reaction is to stand our ground, dig our heels in, and defend our prices. How dare you tell me that I'm overpriced? But at the end of the day, do I want to feel right? Do I want to feel significant? Or do I want to educate them? Maybe they're not aware of what our prices are and the value of our services. Do I want a bad review? Or do I want to win them to our side? All of these tools you can utilize to develop self-control and to get those disruptive emotions under control. So the next topic I like to talk about is likability. What is likability anyway? As Tim Sanders writes in his book, The Likability Factor, he describes likability as the ability to create positive attitudes in other people through the delivery of emotional and physical benefits. Now we're going to go through these, and then I'm going to tell you a story at the end of these 10 ways that you can become more likable. And we all know that likability is key to influencing the decision of others. When somebody first meets you, they're internally asking themselves, "Do I like you?" And at the end of the day, people want to do business with people that they like, that understand them, and that they can trust. So we'll first start with smile. The easiest thing that you can do to create friendliness and signal openness is smile. Voice tone. We want to avoid Ben Stein, "dry eyes for the clear eye." We don't want any of those monotone tones. We want to avoid talking too quickly, and we also want to make sure that we are not dominating the conversation. Be polite. In this day and age, being polite and paying compliments to somebody can go a long way. Prospects have no patience for anybody that's rude and not friendly. Dress. At the end of the day, you got to dress to impress. When you dress your best, you also feel your best. And when a client first walks in the door, they're immediately judging you by your appearance and what you're wearing. Grooming, along with dress, it's really important that we take care of our hair, our skin routine, making sure that we're clean shaven or at least trimmed. Attention to focus. Focus on the prospect that's standing right in front of us and tune out the noise. Style. Now, style is something that is an opportunity for you to be able to flex your communication with a prospect, because you're going to have different style types and personalities that walk in the door. For example, I may have an excited couple that's coming in to book our venue. I need to match that energy to my client. Or I may have a very business-minded father of the bride that's paying for everything, and he's going to ask me every single one of the details regarding our pricing information. Along with style, we have language. Matching somebody's language and lingo can really help us get into their inner circle of trust. And what do we know about sales? It's all about doing business with people we trust, that understand me, that get me. So if I match and mirror their style and lingo, I have a higher chance that I'm going to be more likable. The next is enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is infectious. When we're enthusiastic and passionate about what we do, that translates to our prospect. Not only does it translate to our prospect, but it establishes our credibility as the expert. And lastly, confidence. Let's face it, confidence is attractive. We are attracted to people that carry confidence, that carry themselves well, and again, we want to do business with people that are the experts. So I have a quick story for you. I attended, during my master's degree, the National Opera Association's final round of their national vocal competition. There were 8 finalists that year. all the singers got up and sang. There was this one particular singer that, I didn't think sang very well during the contest, but, they ended up winning 3rd place. They sat down with each of the judges, and the singer told me that the judges mentioned to them that the main thing that caught their eye about this young singer was their stage presence and their confidence, and that they could tell that this person was someone that they would like and enjoy working with. That singer was me. I won 3rd place at the National Opera Association vocal competition. I got up on that stage. I have some level of talent, I think. But after I sang, I really didn't think that I had performed very well. And as I met with each of those judges, I was flabbergasted to hear that one of the reasons they had awarded me a prize was as I walked up on that stage, they could tell that they liked me. They could tell I had personality. And so I challenge you to focus on your likability. And sometimes it can just be the way that you walk in a room. So the next domain that I like to talk about is the ability of creating a personal and emotional, satisfying buying experience. So why do we want the sales experience to be personal? At the end of the day, people do business with people they trust. So we oftentimes have 60 to 90 minutes, sometimes less, to immediately build a deeper connection and win them to our side. So for the purpose of the sales appointment, I like to think of it in 3 stages. The pre-appointment, what happens during the appointment, and after the appointment, and how we can personalize each of these 3 stages. Prior to the appointment, we need to research our prospect. Not only does that give us confidence and gives us talking points to add to our arsenal, but at the end of the day, oftentimes our prospects are stalking us. They're researching on Google, they're looking all into us, so why shouldn't we in turn do the same to them? The internet and social media is a very, very powerful tool. So what do I want to know when I research my prospect? I want to know, are they qualified? What are their shopping habits? Are they carrying a purse that's from Target, or are they carrying a purse that's Gucci? What do I share in common? I can tell you right now in my pre-tour research, before they come out to see our venue, if I find out where they went to school or they went to the University of Cincinnati, speaking of UC, there was somebody in this room that went to UC. I'm going to find him. I saw that on the Whova app. What dominates their social feed? What are they passionate about? When you have this tool in your tool belt, you can pull those out during your appointment because they're going to say, oh, they're like me. They get me. And what is their business? Especially if you're in B2B, we need to know everything about their business if this is the first time that you're meeting with them. Also, before the tour, we need to level up our confirmation text. How many of you utilize any sort of confirmation text system or confirmation email system? Anybody? There's a few hands here. Great. For those of you that are using a confirmation tool, I want to encourage you to add 3 elements to your confirmations. The first is a photo of yourself if you're leading the appointment, or your salesperson. Why is this? When we see someone else's face, we can receive so much rich information from that photo. And as soon as they meet you, they no longer think you're a stranger, but rather think you're an acquaintance. And I don't know about you, but I would much rather buy from somebody that I have at least some little level of personal connection to versus a complete stranger. The second is a brief bio. Now, Ian, why would I want to include a bio about myself? Well, I'll tell you this. When you include personal details about yourself, you have a higher chance of creating a similarity bias. You have a higher chance of having something in common with that person. So here in my bio, yes, we address that I'm an internationally trained opera singer, which in of itself is a cool talking point. But I love music, yoga, and Netflix. Now, chances are I'm going to at least get 1 or 2 of those 3 when my people walk in the door. Who doesn't love Netflix, right? Who doesn't love music? At least I have the ability and to share that opportunity with somebody of their love of music, even if it's anything from the Beatles all the way to, I don't know, death metal punk. And lastly, we want to include the meetup location of the sales appointment. And ultimately, the main goal of including the meetup location is to remove friction. In the sales experience and process, we want to remove friction at every level. The worst thing that happens when a client comes to you, where am I? I don't know where I am. Immediately, right? They're already taken out of the entire experience. If you need recommendations on software, we use Keep and Fix Your Funnel. But I know Dubsado and Zapier also have this integration with a CRM as well as tech software. Now, during the appointment, did I do that? Okay. During the appointment, we want to engage them with authentic emotion. Now, this is not the emotion that you display as the salesperson in the sales process. I'm not coming into the venue at Madera Estates and saying, and now this is the bridal suite. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the emotion that your prospect is feeling. And that authentic emotion is achieved by asking open-ended questions. This allows us to gain more insight into our prospect and understand their why. The other opportunity that you have to create authentic emotion is harness that pre-tour or pre-appointment research. If you have trouble making natural conversation, using this pre-tour research is going to be gold for you. If you struggle with natural conversation, pull out any of these items that you learned during your pre-appointment research to help you with talking points. The next is what's in a name. I was hosting a wedding last week, and I was helping this gentleman find the restrooms, and I always like to meet people. I'm a curious person. I don't know a stranger. So I asked him what his name was. And guess what? His name was Ian. So immediately, we built an amazing connection. We were talking about how great our name was. We were also talking about Hurricane Ian and how bad that was. But like selfishly, as a little kid, I was like so excited because finally a hurricane was named after me. So names. Somebody's name is so, so important. And as Dale Carnegie says, remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. So here are a few tips where you can incorporate and repeat somebody's name during your sales appointment. The first is display. If you're welcoming somebody at some sort of welcome desk or some sort of office, having some item that already displays their name, welcome Bob and Amy, immediately they have that opportunity to feel that openness and feel that friendliness. The next is repeat. I challenge everybody in this room to repeat your sales appointment's names at least 3 times. At the beginning of the appointment, in the middle of the appointment, and at the end of the appointment. If you have a difficult name to pronounce, ask for pronunciation. I can tell you right now, people more often appreciate asking, hey, do you mind repronouncing that for me? I want to make sure that I say your name correctly. Versus butchering their name throughout the appointment or avoiding their name altogether, which, let's face it, we maybe have all been there. So we need to continue to ask for pronunciation if we receive those difficult names. Now, if you don't have that skill set where you can remember names very well, you can use this short acronym, LIRA, which is L, look and listen. When you meet somebody for the first time, you need to pay attention and be ready to receive that person's name. Next is impression. What attributes stand out about this person that make them memorable, that help you remember their name? R, repetition, we mentioned, repeat, repeat, repeat. And then A is association. If you have a prospect that comes in the door and they look like they work out, they're athletic, their name's David, in your head you can think, okay, there's a David Beckham, he's a soccer player, he's athletic, this guy's David. So using those associations can also help you remember your prospects' names. And of course, too, if you have some sort of intake form when they're not looking, you can always just like grab a little peek if you need some help. After the tour, you may be thinking, okay, I understand the pre-appointment, personalization, the during the appointment, of course, you're belly to belly, you're interacting with this person. How do I personalize following up with somebody? Well, I'm here to tell you that we need to include those personal details from that sales appointment, and we need to avoid the words checking in. I need everybody to raise their right hand and solemnly swear that you will never send a follow-up email by saying, I'm just checking in. Please don't. It is so impersonal. It's so salesy. So what we want to do in all of our correspondence with our prospects and our clients is to add value to their experience. So here are 3 great ways that you can send a better follow-up email. The first is the email title. We're going to include their name, right, because it's the sweetest sound in any language. Number 2 is a descriptive adjective, and 3 is the name of your business. The second item that we can include is get personal. Include personal details, address their needs in that email. If there was something funny that happened during the appointment, mention that too. We're on 17 acres of land at Madera Estates, and we recently had a family of 4 armadillos that moved into our property by the groom's quarters, and they sometimes like to make an appearance during our appointments. So you better believe I include that in the follow-up email. So you can see here, the Madera Estates family, armadillos included, had such a great time. And lastly, we want to share relevant content. So we're not checking in, we're adding value to their correspondence. Have a reason to reach out to them that's not just checking in. But in reality, that's what you're doing, right? You're reaching back out to say, hey, have you looked at that proposal yet? Think about sending maybe photos from a satisfied client or a satisfied customer. Or send them a blog post. How many of you have a blog as a part of your business? A few of us. Or a blog post from another third-party reputable source. Sharing blog posts are very, very lucrative and a great way that you can add value. A prime example could be, I have a client that's looking to get married at our venue in December. We have a lot of holiday decor. I need to follow up with them. I haven't heard in a while. Hey, I thought of you. Here's a beautiful December wedding where you can see our 12-foot Christmas tree and all our holiday decor. Have you had a chance to look at blah, 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 blah? Oh yeah, he's thinking about me. He's thinking about my needs. And our last domain today is building trust and laying the foundation for an easy yes. And ultimately for this, what it comes down to is keeping them engaged. Clients are thinking to themselves, do I trust you? We need to make sure that our intent and actions match our words. We need to avoid information temptation to keep them engaged. We need to test the engagement of our prospects through micro-commitments. And then lastly, keeping them engaged, we can go the extra mile because chances are our friendly neighborhood competition already is. How many of you have heard the phrase, all the world is a stage? Very famous William Shakespeare quote. So at the end of the day, you're always auditioning. From the moment you walk in the room, somebody is checking you out. Your prospect is judging you. They're looking at what you're wearing. Even before I stepped on stage, you were checking me out. You're like, okay, he's got a cool suit, right? You're already making these preconceived notions in your head. And it's really hard to manage all of our promises, our actions, all of these details. Everything you do is being micromanaged. You sent an email late. You never followed up when you said you were going to follow up. Now, all of these details may seem small and insequential negative outcomes, but at the end of the day, all of these small negative outcomes lead them to not trust you. Stephen R. Covey says in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that building trust is like making deposits into an emotional bank account. When you make deposits, which are displaying consistent behavior that you are trustworthy into the bank account grows. So things like listening, following up when you say, keeping your promises. This allows you to add more regular deposits into their emotional bank account. That builds the trust. However, when we don't honor these commitments, we're making withdrawals out of their emotional bank account. And we know what happens when we make too many withdrawals at our bank, right? The bank account is overdrawn, and then we got to pay a lot of late fees or payments, penalties, all of those not so great things. So we need to build trust. How do we do that? Here are 8 ways that you can build trust and build that engagement with your prospect. We need to listen. We need to be confident. Believe it in yourself. Confidence is attractive. Keep your promises. Follow up and follow through. There's nothing more frustrating when a prospect is told, hey, I'm going to get XYZ by this date. and they don't get it. Immediately, they're unengaged, they are disengaged from you because, oh, Ian can't follow through with his promises. Be on time. My favorite motto is if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're dead. Now, you may not be dead. You can adopt it a little bit, so it's not so dreadful. But being on time is a big deal for our prospects. And at the end of the day, they have little patience for this. There's so much competition now that if you can't do something as simple as being on time, how can I trust that you're going to produce one of the biggest moments of my life? Be prepared. As I mentioned, my motto, be prepared, be over-prepared, allows you for confidence and flexibility. Meet deadlines. You need to set your goals, and you need to beat them. Keep your sales materials pristine. If you hand a prospect outdated sales materials that have incorrect pricing, incorrect verbiage, you hand them sales materials that has a coffee stain on it, that's making all those withdrawals out of your bank account. Trust is going down instead of going up. And lastly, we need to manage our message. We need to manage expectations. We need to be honest. Don't get caught in little white lies. If you get caught in a white lie, trust is gone. And apologize when necessary. If you do make a mistake, we're all human, own up to it. One of my favorite sayings from David J.P. Phillips on emotional investment is this: the more emotionally invested you are in anything in your life, the less critical and less objectively observant you become. I'm going to say this one more time. The more emotionally invested you are in anything in your life, the less critical and less objectively observant you become. So I'm not saying that we're going to take advantage of people's emotions, but as we started this whole conversation and session today, we know that most people act on emotion and then they justify it later with logic. So how do we keep somebody emotionally invested? How do we keep them engaged? First is we need to avoid information temptation. Step away from lists and amenities. Lists and amenities are where your sales appointment goes to die. Our brain is divided into two different sections. System 1 is the one that's rapid fire. It answers all those easy questions. 98% of our brain function happens there. If you start going down lists and amenities, and over and over and over, the client's brain gets overwhelmed and they're stuck in System 2. That just muddies up our journey to yes. So how do we avoid information temptation? There's 3 things that you can do. The first is tell a story. Telling a story or storytelling really allows your brain to go with the flow. And if you want to learn more about storytelling today, I highly recommend Amanda. She's at 11:20. There's some great speakers here today that I really encourage you. If you need more on storytelling, she's coincidentally offering a presentation on that. Focus on the prospect. We need to cut out the noise. Focus on the prospect that's standing right in front of you. And then lastly, we need to keep it simple. We need to keep their brains engaged with cognitive ease. And then, if we have certain information, we need to tell it to them at the end. I'm not saying don't go over your services, but we need to streamline that process. Next is testing engagement. So ultimately, the way that we test the engagement of our prospect, once we've identified ways to keep them engaged, offers us 3 vital purposes. It gives us a dose of reality. It actually helps us gauge our win probability. And it helps us increase our win probability. There's 2 ways to test the engagement of your prospect. The first is to tune into their emotions. How are they responding to your questions? Are their answers short and clipped? What is their posture like? Are they hunched over or their arms crossed? Immediate sign of disengagement. So if you can't connect with them, or you're struggling to connect with them, there are 3 things that you can do. The first is shake it up, like that Taylor Swift song. You can try another sales tactic, or you can introduce another member of your team, and at the end of the day, don't take it personal. Some people just connect better with other people. The other way that you can tune into your emotions when they're not connecting with you is leverage the takeaway. Disrupt them and pull them toward you, baby. And lastly, walk away. Sometimes it's just best to walk away instead of saving or spending so much time on a dead-end prospect and lead. The second way that you can test their engagement is through micro-commitments. This is really getting them to agree to any step and following through with it. So here are some examples of micro-commitments. This could be time. This could be agreeing to a follow-up appointment. It could be emotion. Are they engaging with you? Are they answering your questions in longer sentences? And lastly, it could be through actions. If you need additional access to an additional decision maker, for us oftentimes, the independent financer, if it's not our clients, we need them to commit to agreeing to meet with us. This is a great way to engage them through micro-commitments. And lastly, we need to go the extra mile. I went to a new restaurant down in Houston. It was a Korean barbecue place with my sister for her birthday. And I was immediately taken back because the owner of the restaurant came out, found out that it was our birthday, went out 2 minutes, not 3 seconds later came back with a birthday card signed by about 30 people that said, "Thank you so much for celebrating your birthday with us." So I challenge you to keep a stack of cards, get well wishes cards, birthday cards, so you can pull those out when you have those special moments. Maintain the experience. Gen Z and millennials, especially if you work with them, they love experiences. They love the shock and awe. They love to feel special and bougie. So if you can incorporate drinks or scents or play music during that experience, I highly encourage you to, because this also keeps your prospect engaged. And lastly, create magical moments. I'll end today with a quick story that we utilize to overcome emotion on a rainy wedding day. So we actually will take jars and collect rainwater on wedding day, and we'll give it to the clients unannounced with a little handwritten note, and on top of the jar is their wedding date and their names. And so we hand this jar to them at the end of the day, and we say, this is something that you can utilize to grow your first garden at your house or baptize your first child. It's a first great way to overcome emotion. So thank you so much for coming out today. Here's some great reading resources if you need them. Sales EQ, The Likeability Factor, Stories That Stick, and Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And if you have 3 takeaways today, I hope these are them. Books. Take a picture. If you have 3 takeaways today, the building blocks for your emotion, for ROE, return on emotion, identify your emotional triggers, get personal during each stage of the tour, and maintain and test the engagement during your sales process. I don't know if I have any time for questions. I don't, but if you want to come meet me, I'll be at the back of the room. Here's my contact information. You can send me an email. There's my personal and business website, as well as our social media handles. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you have a great day.